What is the pain of not making more money? What is the pain of not getting your business to that level? The pain is that you go your whole life regretting your decisions because you haven't taken action like you told yourself to take. You can leverage pain to motivate your unconscious mind to keep you away from that pain. And if you're not, it's probably because you have conscious desires that are misaligned with what's influencing you subconsciously.
We're back with a bonus episode, manifesting money, right? Right now, money comes in different chambers. There's different elements of how I can succeed. Can I manifest multiple things at the same time?
That's probably the most common question I get is, can I manifest things or multiple things simultaneously? Sure, you could, but I always say if you chase two rabbits, you'll catch neither. There's a lot of power and focus. I know you love my analogy, so I'll give you a different analogy, not a car analogy.
The hypnosis Ferrari?
No.
Oh, okay.
No cars, no workout analogies. Focus is like a fire. If you keep it in the fireplace, it's great. If you let it out into the forest, it burns everything down. So a lot of people use their focus like a fire outside of a fireplace, and it's just like shiny object syndrome. They end up sacrificing everything that they have their hands in. Where if you just focused on one path, and we were talking about this before the episode here, so many people are like, oh, I need 7 streams of income. No, get good at one path first, one source of income first, and then you can diversify. Put in the work for 5 years on one thing, and then diversify.
Yeah.
So focus is like a fire, and I think it needs to be contained. There's also a lot of freedom in focus. There's freedom in commitment, whether it's in a marriage or whether it's in a business. Because you get to say no to everything else that is not part of that focus. So if it's with your marriage, you don't have to worry about dating anymore. You can get to say no to all the things that are not congruent with being in a healthy, happy marriage. If you focus on one business in your niche, you don't have to say yes to anything that's not congruent or aligned with that. There's a lot of power and freedom in that.
Yeah. From the high clientele that I've worked with, TV personalities, super influencers, pro athletes, I've learned that that diversifying your portfolio, your 7 different streams of income is really for wealth management and what you do once you've already reached a level of success financially.
And we've mentioned before that there's different brands of success. There's financial success, there's other material success, spiritual success, relationship success, sport success. I know you've worked with Ali Krieger, world champion of 2024 she won the World Cup?
She won the NWSL championship 2024, multiple World Cup wins, Olympic athlete.
Yeah. I can guarantee you she didn't get good at soccer and become world class by also playing basketball at the same time.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to operate like a professional athlete in business. And not even a professional athlete, because there's actually, I think, a different level between professional athletes and Olympic athletes. So that's really, and obviously a lot of professional athletes also, especially in like soccer and sports like that, they tend to also be Olympic athletes, the ones who are at the top level. But that's why I tell my team with the app, we have the Mind Mod Hypnosis app, and I have a great team. You've met my CEO, Yasmin. She's phenomenal.
She's amazing. Yeah.
And we have a great CTO, Mario. He's great. He's on the back end of all the things. But I constantly reinforce the fact that we are training for the Olympics. We're not training to be professional athletes where we just like get to show up and have a cushy salary because we perform better than most people. No, we are going to be the best, and we're going to train year round to achieve a level of excellence that most people will never even sniff, you know? And so it's just a little subtle mindset shift when you go from like financial or performance related success, when you go from financial or performance related success to like excellence. There's a difference there.
Yeah. Let's unpack that a little bit because it relates to manifesting success, manifesting money. How do you handle the leadership side and bringing that excellence into your company?
So this is going to sound a little cliche because we hear this all the time in the relationship world and in therapy is communication is the most important. But if there's one lesson that I learned in my startup that I founded with my partners is that communication is paramount. because you can say a lot and someone still might not really grasp what you're saying. You're not communicating with them in a way that matches their communication style. You know what's in your head. They don't know what's in your head. People are not mind readers. And so really developing the skill of clearly articulating your wants, needs, and desires, right? This is where we get into delegation. Delegation on the surface is very simple. It's like, what do you want? How do you want it done? And when do you want it done by? But usually there's a breakdown in that. There's a breakdown of communicating those different elements of it. So I would say the single most important factor to succeeding in a partnership, especially a business setting, specifically with like a tech startup, because you're moving so quickly on things, is increasing the efficacy of your communication.
Got it. Yeah, delegation is definitely easier said than done. How are you implementing hypnosis and manifesting into your leadership structure of business?
So I have a really cool story about this. Well, cool, depending on who you ask. So my partner, Yasmin, we always joke that I hypnotized her to be my partner. And it's kind of true. Yasmin, if you're watching this, and we joke about this still, but she said no for a long time. Yasmin was actually a client of mine, and she's been in the startup world. She's worked for other startups in a variety of industries.
She's brilliant.
She's great. She's an expert marketer. She has her own marketing business. And for months, I was like, hey, I have this idea for a startup, for an app, and I want to take my hypnosis offering to the next level and make it easy and accessible for people. She liked the idea because she came to me for stuff, and we used hypnosis to resolve some things and improve her performance. So she bought in from like a service perspective, like the value of what I do. But she's like, oh, I have bad experiences with startups and communication and things with partners. And I said, okay. So I used some of my hypnotic language and influence. And in all seriousness, of course, I was trying to persuade her to work with me. And ultimately, this common through line that we're talking about is trust. She'll tell you that the reason she decided to work with me and partner with me on the MindMod app is the fact that she trusted me. Trusted me financially, trusted me with her emotions, trusted me to with respect, to have integrity, to do what I said I was going to do. And so that I can't emphasize enough. I know we keep talking about this, but the spiritual currency is trust. And if you don't have trust, the money, even if you get it in, will ultimately go away.
Right. So trust being the through line, the currency of trust, how is that going to actually help me make more money?
Well, it's about developing integrity. First of all, not just outward integrity, meaning letting people know that you're going to do what you tell them you're going to do, but you got to have integrity in yourself. It's not just getting other people to trust you. It's about building that trust account for you. Are you doing the things that you told yourself you're going to do? Are you keeping those promises to yourself? Are you keeping those commitments to yourself? And if you're not, it's probably because you have conscious desires that are misaligned with what's influencing you subconsciously.
Okay. Let's unpack that a little bit. So I have subconscious desires that are influencing my conscious, right?
So you have subconscious influences.
Okay.
I guess you could say desires, but you have conscious desires that are misaligned with subconscious influences, those programs that are running.
Okay.
So the example I always give is if you want $1 million, you're like, oh, this consciously, you're like, oh, I want $1 million. It's going to change my life. I'm going to be able to help people. I'm going to buy my dream car, whatever it may be.
Yep.
But subconsciously, you have a belief that that amount of money might make you a bad person, or people are going to want things from you, or they're going to judge you. Well, now you have two conflicting elements. You have the subconscious program that's misaligned with the conscious desire.
Got it.
That's making you feel stuck.
Got it. Okay. So how can I get unstuck other than just action? Because it seems pretty effortless from the anecdotes of your trainings.
Yeah. So action is the secret. People don't like to hear that. But here's the thing too about success is it requires sacrifice. You see this at definitely the top level. Professional athletes like we're talking about, they sacrifice so much to be at the top 1% of performers in their sport. You see this with the top, anytime you see someone who's making over $500,000-$600,000 a year, you start having to sacrifice so much. It's not necessarily a bad thing, right? This is where we get into what's fulfilling for you, what's actually allowing you to live out your purpose and what fills you up. Some people can get that out of what they're building. But I can tell you that sacrifice is the name of the game. at all levels. How much are you willing to sacrifice is a question that you got to ask yourself.
Got it. And how does sacrificing for financial success and potentially the currency of truth, how is that a derivative of biblical teachings?
So what's interesting to me is that if you look at biblical teaching, the whole story of Jesus is about sacrifice, you know, and then we are meant to sacrifice, made in the image of God as co-heirs with Christ. And we're supposed to take up our cross daily. And so people don't like to hear that. And one of the things that people always kind of come back at against Christianity is this whole, I have to sacrifice this. I can't just get the money and the success, and I can't be prideful and all these things because they're so attached to the physical world that they don't want to sacrifice it. But then I give the same example I just gave you, is like, well, you're already sacrificing things. You're sacrificing things to have the type of business you want now. You're sacrificing things to be the top at your sport. You're not willing to sacrifice things spiritually, you know? So I don't know. Everything I do is influenced by spiritual teaching from a Christian perspective. Now, does that mean I think God wants me to drive my G-Wagon? I said this before. I don't know. Maybe he's using it. I would like to think he's given me territory financially. I think we may have talked about territory in the past. But from the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, where he talks about creation, God gave us authority as human beings. We were made in his image and given authority over all of creation, the sea, the land, the heavens, spiritually, physically. And so we also have different territory inside of that. Just like you might have like some person, you have America and you have Europe, right? Different governments have different territory. We have different territory in the form of our industry that we're in, or an area that we have influence in. Like maybe someone's a really good therapist and they are really good at helping couples. Well, they have literal invisible territory, if you will, that allows them to really thrive in that setting of helping people from a relationship perspective. I personally believe God has given me a territory in the New Age community, in the manifestation world, because he knows that my heart is not just about greed or about making money. Of course, I want to be successful and I want to be prosperous, but I'm also using my territory and my authority in this space to help people see the spiritual truth behind it. I just created my very own hypnosis app where you can literally have me in your back pocket to help you lose weight faster, make more money, and make your success inevitable. I've combined ancient wisdom and modern day neuroscience to create this app where you can literally reprogram your own subconscious mind for success. To get started today, click the link below and grab your free 7-day trial. I'll see you on the inside.
Language of the time, and how that is seen and to be implemented from the Bible, or maybe even from the Declaration of Independence, or how these ancient, so to speak, teachings didn't necessarily use words like,
quantum or
right.
neuroplasticity.
Right. So let's unpack that a little bit more. I want to dive deeper on the language part and how, I think it's interesting to me because, if we're going off of biblical teachings, and so much of our world is from that, how does it still apply? How does it, when there's so many technologies and, implementations that couldn't have ever been perceived by, let's say, the founding fathers or, the disciples?
Yeah. So if we look at the language that was used in the Bible and who it was used for, it's obviously what you might say is overly simple from a language perspective compared to how we use language today, and the science and the study of these different really intricate internal systems from a neurological perspective to spiritual perspective. We're constantly trying to evolve the way we describe things. I think that's good and bad. One of the things I always look at is how the Bible, God tells us to meditate on the word, so that this is a very black and white example, or like a literal example of how language was simplified, but is actually alluding to or describing something that we now have a lot of scientific language around. So let's back up for a second. The Bible says to meditate on the word. Why does he say not just read the word? Why does he say not just like talk about the word or the Bible? He says meditate on it. It's because God knew that neuroplasticity is a thing, and that we do learn things faster. Our brain literally restructures and reconnects different neurons together when we are in a state of focus and a state of neurological relaxation. Now, the authors of the Bible who were speaking to people at the time were not saying, hey, if you sit down and you close your eyes and you get in a state of physiological relaxation, it's connected via your nervous system to your brain, which is going to give you a release of acetylcholine and all these feel-good chemicals that will allow you to trigger this neuroplasticity process, which is going to allow you to solidify the information that you're focused on. No, God was just like, hey, meditate on this word.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying, you're downloading this information as an algorithm that will then manifest in your life through your actions and behaviors and ultimately your outcomes.
Mm. Now we talk about meditation.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about meditation. Now, can you tell me what is the difference between meditation and hypnosis?
Meditation and hypnosis are the same state, but different process or different intention. Meaning when someone's in a state of meditation and they're in a state of hypnosis, they're in the same neurological state. You get what's called a hypoactivation. So there's hyperactivation, which is like an overactivation. And then hypo is you're getting a deactivation, if you will. And this happens in the front part of the brain. I talk about the prefrontal cortex over all the time. Once again, a lot of this is an oversimplification, but it helps to get that conscious buy-in from people who are learning this.
Mm-hmm.
Is that when you are meditating or when you're in hypnosis or when you're in focused prayer, when you're daydreaming, when you're lost in a good book, you're driving from point A to point B and you forgot how you got there, you're getting this deactivation internally of the prefrontal cortex. So that's the state that then increases neuroplasticity. It allows you to learn things quickly. It allows you to upgrade your subconscious operating system to make these new connections and reassess and adapt. Now, what I find the main difference between meditation and hypnosis is that meditation is like fancy escapism. You know, people will be in a bad emotional state and they want to get out of it and they want to reset and recharge. So they try to escape it. They're like, I'm going to clear my mind. Where hypnosis is like, no, we're going to use this. We're going to use this anxiety. We're going to use this fear, this belief that you don't want to have. And we're going to change that algorithm. We're going to go in and find what was the input that created this output. So rather than just like pushing the program over to the side, we're actually using it to create change.
Do you think that there's a meditative state and hypnosis, so to speak, being used in, what do you call it, sermon teaching, ancient teaching, maybe more recent, modern, I don't know.
Of course. I mean, you have ancient, not just Christians, but you have all these ancient religions and groups that were using things like chanting and whatnot, you know, that caused a meditative state. Prayer, meditative state inherently, like I just said. You know, us right now, we're in some sort of meditative hypnotic state with each other. You know, there's a million things that could bring your attention to, like the feeling of your sneakers on your feet or the sound of the air that you weren't aware of until I just mentioned it because we were so in this state of focused attention. And so what we're speaking about right now, we're much more likely to retain than something we're just kind of listening to passively because we're listening to it actively with an increased state of focus. We're also relaxed because we're comfortable with each other. And so that information is more likely to be solidified neurologically.
So I'm going to be using this information just neurologically, but so just as a microcosm of it, is there anything that you can do to show me that I can be hyper aware in this state? Because listen, I have you in my ears, right? And I am comfortable. I am in a place. Last time you made my eyes stuck shut, but like you just mentioned my feet and I was expecting to like feel it. And I think I did feel a little like tingle in my feet or something, but like how can I become aware of this potential
So I think maybe the question you're asking, correct me if I'm wrong, is how do you leverage this state or how do you do it intentionally? This is like, how do you actually meditate in a way that helps you manifest faster? Or how do you hypnotize yourself to make these changes? Very simple. You need two things. You need an increased state of physical relaxation because that gets a neurological relaxation. The state of meditation, the state of hypnosis is not defined by the physical state, it's defined by the mental state.
Okay.
And so the reason you get physical relaxation is to get the state of mental relaxation. Then you get the state of focus combined with that, which has these neurochemical responses in acetylcholine and things like that. Now, one of the ways to do this is to leverage what's called interoception. Interoception is like the awareness of what's happening internally. You know, when I said, you know, move your attention to the sneaker on your foot, you had interoception, an inner dialogue and an awareness of how that felt that got moved there. So you do this intentionally. This is what you might call like a body scan. People can track from the top of their head down to the tips of their toes and just become aware of different vibrations and sensations. That will automatically get this increase in acetylcholine. Anytime you move your awareness from the external world to the internal world, you're going into a moderate hypnotic state.
Yeah, let's talk about this. So walk me through performing hypnosis on myself.
Sure. So the fastest way to hypnotize yourself is to first control your breathing, because your breathing is going to be tied to your physiological state, which is tied to your neurological state. So breathing state tied to your physiological state, tied to your neurological state. So when you can control your breathing, you control your physiology, and then you ultimately control what's happening internally from a neurological perspective. So what does this mean? The first thing someone should do after having their eyes closed, of course, and the reason we have our eyes closed is simply because it reduces external stimuli, increases those focus chemicals. Once you have your eyes closed, is to then control your breathing. And how do you do this? Very simple process of breathing deeply. And I tend to use 3 deep breaths. You know, it seems to be a complete number, right? As he's doing it now. But you take 3 deep breaths, and that's automatically going to trigger relaxation responses internally. And the better you get at them, or the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And so as you physically relax, then you can just start becoming aware of what's happening internally. So this might be like the feeling of the clothes on your body, or maybe you feel the chair beneath you and you notice kind of how you're situated in relation to the world around you, even though you can't see it because your eyes are closed. You can kind of have this interoception of what's coming to your awareness in your mind's eye. And so once you do that, you can even take yourself to somewhere that does not exist here, meaning you go to like a beach in your mind. And what happens is when you go there, maybe a beach or like a cozy cabin in the woods or somewhere that you've been before on vacation, you're automatically going somewhere that you're not currently at in quote unquote reality, and you're activating that unconscious part of your brain right now. So you're going to have an emotional response, you're going to have a physiological response, whatever's tied to that external imaginative experience, if you will.
Dude,
so
I swear. I can feel when you say this stuff. I'm saying, I mean, I know you're just telling me and explaining it, but I can feel it. I feel like the moment you said physiological response, like my stomach gurgled a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm very susceptible to your powers.
That's the thing.
Stop the madness.
It's not like it. I know we kind of joke about power and me hypnotizing people, but we all have the ability to do this. This is why I'm so gung-ho about like getting it out to everybody, because literally all it takes is 3 deep breaths, physically relax your body, and move your focus internally. That'll get you in this state. The magic or the nuance happens in what you do after the state. You know, this is where my teachings come in. I teach people how to leverage that state. And really what you're doing is you're creating different internal dialogues, leveraging different processes. We'll talk about one here. Actually, this is good. I teach the triple P technique. The triple P technique is a way to leverage pain, process, and pleasure to hack your internal algorithm, if you will. So we all kind of have this even unconscious awareness, but some people are consciously aware of this, that we're always driven away from pain and towards pleasure. Kind of common sense, right? Like you don't want to touch the hot stove because it's pain, so your brain learns to keep you away from the hot stove. You want the ice cream because it tastes good and it makes you feel good, so your mind mobilizes you towards the ice cream.
It's instinctual.
So let's look at the whole triple P process. It leverages pain, process, and pleasure. I'm going to talk about these one step at a time, and we'll do it in relation to money because that's what we're talking about here on this episode. You can leverage pain to motivate your unconscious mind to keep you away from that pain. And so let's say you want to make more money or you want to grow your business. What is the pain of not making more money? What is the pain of not getting your business to that level? So maybe the pain is you go bankrupt. Maybe the pain is that you lose your family because you haven't been able to provide for them. The pain is that you go your whole life regretting your decisions because you haven't taken action like you told yourself to take. You really want to make that pain and regret. That's probably the most powerful emotion you can drum up internally, and leverage that to convince your unconscious mind that like there's no other way. We have to achieve this goal because the alternative is this level of pain, which is obviously bad for us because pain, the mind is really equating to death, right? Pain and pleasure, like we were just talking about. So that's enough to amplify. That'll get you some sort of result. if you just focus on the pain. But when you couple it with the next two pieces of the process, it supercharges it. The next is process. So once you've gotten into a hypnotic state and you step into that regret, the pain of what you might call your anti-goal. That's a phrase I heard, your anti-goal. Focus on the anti-goal. Now you focus on the process. So this just means seeing yourself do one or two of the things necessary to get the outcome that you want. What's interesting about this is there's been studies done that have shown that when you mentally rehearse doing something, let's say like going to the gym, you are 7 times more likely to actually do the thing or achieve the goal. So this is both macro and micro, meaning macro, if you rehearse yourself getting the $1 million check or closing the investment deal or getting your business to a certain metric, you're 7 times more likely to do it just by mentally rehearsing it once. Now, this also might be you mentally rehearsing yourself knocking on doors as a salesperson or doing outreach in the DMs or creating content. Like actually seeing yourself in your mind first in a hypnotic state is programming your unconscious mind to make that easier for you to do in reality, up to 700%, which is an insane improvement in likelihood and in efficacy.
I'm realizing that I do that every day. Like whenever I have a shoot that I might be a little bit nervous about, I walk through it. I'm walking through what it's going to be like when I walk in the room and when I start to film and when I pull out this piece of equipment, I rehearse it like that. And I didn't realize that I was doing that.
Mm-hmm. So some people do this naturally, and you don't need an eyes closed state necessarily to leverage these sort of processes. I have found that when you are in a hypnotic state, so if you were to take, say, 5 minutes before a shoot that you're maybe nervous about or a little unsure about, take 5 minutes to actually get into a relaxed state physically and mentally, and then do that internally, it'd work even better for you. So we have that. We have pain, process, and then pleasure. You can leverage pleasure because that's going to magnetize you towards that pleasurable outcome. So this is where most people stop, is they just do the pleasure part. They visualize their outcomes. They step into the feeling. But like I said before, you supercharge it when you put all three of these together. So pleasure is just very simply living in your outcome. See yourself looking at your bank account with the all the money in there, the 2 commas or whatever. I was just mentioning before the show, I worked with a client who has a podcast, and her metric was 250,000 followers on social media. And when we worked together, she had like 20,000. Now she just crossed over 250,000, and that was her pleasure, kind of drumming up the feelings, talking to her friends about it, what it meant for her emotionally and success-wise to actually have that following. That's what she stepped into.
Now, when I'm walking through that, because what you just showed us is getting into a state of hypnosis and then using a practical method, the 3 Ps, the triple P method. Now, is that manifesting?
Well, everything's manifesting. Manifesting is just a fancy word for goal setting and goal achieving. Like I said, it's a dirty 16-letter word. It's something that has been demonized. And I'm very adamant about this. I've prayed on it. I've meditated on it. Manifestation is just like money. It's not evil. It's how you use it. Just like a sharp knife. I've given this analogy. You can use it to prepare a good meal for your family, or you can use it to hurt somebody or hurt yourself. Manifestation, money, the same way. Manifestation is happening all the time. You're manifesting the subconscious influences that you have internally. That's the whole shtick. It's like people are already like, you are a master manifester already. You're a manifesting machine because everything you have in your life right now, you manifested it, even if you don't like it. And once you realize that, you're like, oh, I can start manifesting the things I actually do want. Yeah. And that's where hypnosis comes in. We got to leave this in. For people just listening, Bryce is having a tremendously positive reaction to what I just said.
I think for people watching and listening, the guy is a fucking genius. That's all. He's a fucking genius. He's extremely articulate. I work with the highest level public speakers on planet Earth. He's the best. Just saying.
And I hate when Christians do this, but I'm going to do this. Not that I hate it, but it was like, oh, all glory to God. It is all glory to God. But I will say that specifically, like my ability to articulate these things have been because of my biblical study. God has revealed to me things spiritually and allowed me to articulate them logically and practically. And so it's not just a me thing, it's certainly a God thing, a spiritual thing.
What has did you just say that God has revealed things to you?
Yeah. I mean, it's been through his word, it's been through Bible study, because the Bible is both literal and allegorical. When you read something in the Bible, it literally happened, unless sometimes Jesus gave parables as examples, as metaphor, as allegory.
Mm-hmm.
But the things that are meant to be literal are literal. But they're also allegorical, meaning you can read into them 75 different ways, and it's going to teach you a different lesson about a different area of your life at a different time. So it's when you read it, how you read it, what's your life at that particular time when you study it. And so these are things that you can't just see in black and white letters on a piece of paper. These are things that you kind of know in your heart, and God reveals it to you through this supernatural connection and alchemy of information internally that sometimes doesn't even have. There's plenty of things that I try to describe on this podcast, or I talk about to you or my friends outside of this. I can't even articulate it to the extent of how powerful I actually know it is.
And you are powerful.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is like so many timid Christians out here. I don't know, it was a couple episodes ago, I said, I really can't stand the timid Christians. It's like, no, God gave you power. I was just reading in the Old Testament, I think it was the end of Deuteronomy. God was talking about, I think to Joshua, or maybe Joshua was revealing it to the Israelites, doesn't matter. He was talking about the miraculous things that Moses did, and the terrifying acts and the power that he had. This is God talking about the power that a human had. Now, it was through God, right? It was through the power and authority of God that Moses was able to do these things. But we also have that power, and too many Christians are like, oh no, it's all God. Yeah, it is all God. We get that, but it's also you too. And I've realized that the most at peace I've been in my life is not, I gotta be careful here because it is about surrendering. It is about surrendering, but it's not about inaction. The Bible says, be still, not stay still, So, so when he's talking about being still, he's being still in your heart, in your mind, trusting in him. And that allows you to move forward and take action. And so the most at peace I've been is not when I'm like, God, figure this out miraculously. It's like, no, God, give me the courage, give me the peace to do what I believe is in alignment with your will. Allow me to take action confidently with power and authority. That is when the magic happens. Because when you can take action confidently, courageously, with power and authority, and you trust in God, like, what's the worst that could happen? Like we talked about last episode, like, what's the worst that could happen?
Listen, if you're watching this video and you're at this point, you've made it to the end. That means that you are serious about making a change in your life, whether it be weight loss, whether it be financial success, whether it be to eliminate anxiety, whether it be just to try to better your life generally. It's February, so we are ahead of the pack that said they were going to have a New Year's resolution and failed. So let's together right now, I don't care if it's 150 people, I don't care if it's 1,000 people, I don't care if it's 1,000,000 people, you with me, take this week, take this month, take this next hour to dive into some Anthony Serino audios. They're on this YouTube channel, they're on the MindMod app, and just give it your time, and let's see if we can manifest the dream life that we deserve.
That was a great call to action.
Thank you. We're going to do it together.
Are we done?
Yeah.
Should we keep going? I feel like
we're flowing. Keep going.
People want more.
Yeah.
To what you just said though, is the year is 10% over already, which is crazy. As of recording this, 10% over. And I can tell you, and maybe I got to do my to the camera thing now.
Do it.
But if you are watching this,
yeah,
it probably means that you have some desire to get better, to improve your life in some way. I can promise you that if you go to the end of this year, end of 2025, nothing's going to change unless you change. And everything that we talk about here on the podcast is engineered specifically to help you transform your life from the inside out. So like Bryce said, it's like listen to the hypnosis audios, not just because they're mine. I've just done that. I put in the repetitions. But listen to these podcast episodes, because each time you listen to it, it's like we were talking about with the Bible. Every time I read the Bible, I get a different insight, a different spiritual understanding or wisdom. Every time you watch these podcasts and you do it actively, you take notes, treat it like you paid for it, even though it's free on YouTube, you learn so much more, you learn so much faster, and you literally, like I said, transform from the inside out.
Yeah, and let us know what your thoughts are, not only on, Anthony's teachings, but right here in this room. Look around at the set. If you think it would be cool if we did a different color, if we got a different table, like we are doing this. We don't need to be doing this. We do this because we love to. It's a passion of ours. We're going to be creating content regardless, but these long form podcast recordings, these are for our community. And as that community grows, it's super important for us to get feedback. We love it. We appreciate it. Thank you to anyone who thinks I'm doing a good job, because I'm sitting next to this guy who is always doing the best job. So if you think that it would look cool if we did it, if the room was darker, if we, had a different color, different set design, different topics, we want people to, share their thoughts. Yeah.
Speaking of feedback, we talked about a live event.
Yeah.
That's what we need feedback on. Are people going to show up?
Yeah. We would love to put on a live event. Anthony and I have, put on another event prior to this, where we called it a live podcast event, right? Where we had a number of keynote speakers, and I hosted it. Anthony was one of our speakers, and we're interested in doing that, but taking it to the next level. Definitely in New York, definitely manifesting for viral content. What's the idea?
I think spiritually minded entrepreneurs who have actual problems in their business, but also in maybe their personal life or internally. We talked about some of these subconscious blocks, but I think doing an event where someone can bring a project to us, we can educate them both on the mindset piece, on the marketing and content piece, and we can actually strategize in real time to help problem solve in their business or what they're working on. So an event would be for probably an entrepreneur who's already somewhat established, a business owner, an executive, who really wants to scale their impact, wants to make more money, and also increase their level of peace and even tap into their spirituality.
Because that's where we thrive, you and I in our own right. People walk in here every day. People sit with Anthony every day. And not only do we provide them a service, but we also coach and consult them on strategy. And that's where I thrive for sure. I don't want to speak for you, but I know you do, but really like figuring out what strategy is going to best serve somebody's overall growth, their revenue, their profit, is where I thrive in this business.
Yeah, you're really good at problem solving, the marketing, content, communication, story piece.
Yeah.
Like I'm really good at problem solving the mindset piece of why someone is the way they are. You're good at really asking the right questions of like, okay, well, how do we get you more money by marketing yourself and telling the right story and getting the right messaging across?
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I live for it. It's like what gives me my energy every day. So yeah.
We gotta get your own podcast. We're gonna have like dueling podcasts or something.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. As always, thanks for watching this episode. If you love it and you want more of these juicy hypnotic goodies, manifestation, spirituality, make sure you check out the other episodes right here on my page. You can go on your favorite podcast streaming platform. And also check out my hypnosis app. You can get a free 7-day trial there. If you want to work with me one-to-one, you can also reach out, send me a message. But at the end of the day, my job is to help you become the best version of you and help transform your life from the inside out. So however you consume this content, I greatly appreciate you. And the fact that you trust me with your time and energy really means a lot. So thanks for being here.